Our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by our friends at Zapper, the world's leading augmented reality platform and creative studio, with over 11 years of experience working with the world's biggest brands through Zapper Creative Studio. Zapper also has an award-winning web AR platform, ZapWorks, that lets you create your own mobile AR magic. Finally, check out their Zap Box, the most affordable mixed reality headset on the planet. Start creating AR over at zap.works or talk to them about your next AR project at zapper.com. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, August 26th, 2022. I'm Charlie Fink here with Ted Schilowitz. It's This Week in XR. Good morning, Ted.
Morning, Charlie. Dog days of summer.
Yep.
I'm back on the road a little bit, and things are, nice. And there's lots of news, interesting stuff going on this week.
Yeah. And we've got a great guest today, John Gaeta,
Yeah.
Academy Award winner John Gaeta, who used to be SVP of Strategy at Magic Leap,
Yep.
and is now involved. He's involved with Living Cities XYZ and with a company that I just know just a little bit about because I saw their demo at AWE way back in the beginning of June. So we'll be talking to him about that and also Living Cities XYZ. But first, let us get to this week's news. And we may as well start with InWorld since I brought it up. But the way this works, Ted, is that it gives non-player characters language recognition and enough artificial intelligence to carry on a conversation with you without having an extensive script. All it needs is the context.
Right.
So it's kind of a breakthrough, I think, in games. The demo they had running didn't have good animation. But you can imagine how this could be used in customer service or in any other, because the recording, that you get now and you can't penetrate is really frustrating. So this could be a potential solution to that.
Yeah, well, and no surprise that John Gaeta is behind this. He and I have been friends for a long time. He's had a storied career in VFX. He's one of the guys behind the Matrix, visual
Academy Award winner.
Spent time at ILM and then did a jaunt at Magic Leap, which is an interesting sort of futuristic take on where it all goes. And now he's touching this. So I think there's a there, and I'll make an interesting reference point. There's a movie that came out a couple years ago with Ryan Reynolds called Free Guy, and it kind of underrated from a really good movie standpoint. Sean Levy tends to make really good movies, and this movie talks and refers to the non-player character sort of becoming sentient and going on this comic journey. Very Deadpool-ish sort of sensibility in the movie, but it's worth, for our listeners, it's worth a watch if you have.
What is the name of that movie again, Ted?
Free Guy. Yeah.
Okay, I can't believe I have not seen this movie.
It's much better than you might imagine. You think, oh, it's just going to be, not so great. It's like this goofy video game movie, but it actually is hysterical and it touches on some really interesting themes.
Well, that is an epic segue to the other big story of the week.
There you go.
Which is our friend Timu Tok, an Estonian guy who was on my panel at South by Southwest about the metaverse and what is inside of it. And what is inside of it from his point of view is avatars. And they've developed a cross-platform avatar system that's been integrated into 3,000 apps, including VR chat. You notice I'm wearing my VR chat t-shirt today. Spatial, Somnum Space, a lot of apps we used every day. I'm seeing it more and more. So they just raised 56 million.
This is Ready Player Me you're referring to.
This is Ready Player Me. Sorry. I'm so excited about it. I skipped right over that. I got straight to the story. By the way, I sent Timu an email and he's going to be joining us in about 6 weeks.
Oh, good.
Yes. So we'll learn more about this. But one of the things he said at South by Southwest, and I think it probably is why Andreessen is involved, is that these avatars are NFTs. Right, they belong to you. It's a very Web3 concept, right? It belongs to you. It might have within it all sorts of assets, and it would be connected to your browser because it's an NFT and it lives in your wallet. So really interesting potential. And he is a super nice guy. I love his team.
Well, and it is effectively another version or another construct of a digital wallet, right? So a wallet is a physical presence, right? I have a wallet, you have a wallet, and we have a digital wallet that lives in various ways. And multiple people have multiple digital wallets in the Web 2.0 and some in the Web 3.0 if you have a MetaMask wallet like you and I do. But the idea of it sort of being embodied in your avatar and dragging all your stuff along, all your goods and belongings that live within your avatar presence so that it can link to different game worlds. All
Well,
the big
sure,
game
you can
companies.
imagine, for example, you go into Fortnite with your Ready Player Me avatar, and you're like, ooh, I need to upgrade to a Fortnite avatar. This looks stupid on the bus, going into the battle royale. So I'll pay $7 and get an avatar.
Right. Yeah, and then obviously, we talked a lot about, where the walled gardens and how high, right? And the idea of a company trying to make this transportable universe, I think works in thesis, but it will be interesting to see in practice what companies allow this, because
this is going
to
be a huge category, and there are a lot of important protocols that will have to be in place for it to work. But I think these guys are super well positioned to play an important role. I mean, Meta has its avatar system.
Right.
It's quite good and getting better. Epic has its avatar system,
right.
and it's getting better and better. So this could be a big category. I think there's room for an independent, and I think Andreessen is betting on a good team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, from my standpoint, thinking where the ecosystem of the Sony PlayStation world lives and the Xbox world lives and the Epic Games world lives, I'm not convinced it will all play out in the way that will be universally transportable. I think
no, because you're not going to go into Super Mario World with your Ready Player Me avatar, at least not yet.
At least not yet. And if you do, there's got to be a lot of coding and back end to support it correctly. And look, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, it is interesting.
Have an open mind, I guess. Yeah. Just try and have an open mind.
It is a little bit sci-fi stuff. So, timing. And that is why the metaverse just got added to the Gartner hype cycle with a 10-year timeline to the slope of enlightenment.
Yeah, so, and I guess that gives me good credence, because you heard me talk many times on stage about the 10-year curve that I study all the time, and that things require a 10-year gestation period.
Well, I've said this decade is like the baseball game where all this plays out, in which case we are now just, in the middle of the bottom of the second inning.
Yeah, second inning, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
So, and if you want validation for that, Nike store in Roblox has had 7 million visitors. Roblox has about 43 million daily active users. So I think that's a very, very compelling number. And it's a big validation for the strategy of brands building places.
Right. It doesn't surprise me. It's just a matter of what will not just allow them to go and visit and wander around and go, okay, got it, versus actual engagement, right? And
yes, we don't know what the engagement is, but that's a lot of people, even if their engagement is 1 or 2%. That's a lot of engagement compared to other platforms, especially. So I think that bodes well for the metaverse. By the way, not disparaging Nike or their good news in any way, but they call it their metaverse. So I think, and everybody, I think, let's call this metaverse reductionism, because virtual worlds, even a little virtual world, are now characterized as a metaverse.
Right.
I mean, I'm not here to argue about language. There'd be no end to the conversation. Although as a writer, I have particular interest in it. And as an opinion writer, I have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, of course. Well, and our friend
but honestly, it's like the World Wide Web. I just don't think we're going to be using that word in 10 years. And this is one of the reasons why. It's a very imprecise word.
Yeah, and I think our friend Matthew Ball in his book touches on pretty smartly with meta worlds and meta galaxies, and these areas that you can have some touch point of, yeah, it's a metaverse, and yeah, it touches Web3, but ultimately it's a destination, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So Another interesting thing, a story that continues from last week, is Zuck was roundly criticized for posting a selfie
Yeah.
from Horizon, which is at this point a pretty simplistic virtual world. And as a result, when you take a still photograph inside of it and you take it out of context, it looks pretty flat.
Yeah.
So I think thought he was being cute. Of course he did. But being a tone deaf billionaire, he did not anticipate people freaking out and criticizing him for doing this very simple, sort of dopey thing that a lot of people do. The difference is when I take that picture and I abstract it out into the physical world and I'm like, ooh, that's not a very good picture, I don't go and post it online. Right. But he did that and he was roundly criticized, and he came back with these fantastic graphics. I posted one in the column and said, this is where we're going. I thought that was stunning. And it suggests all sorts of things are going on with Horizon behind the scenes.
And you and I have seen, a number of companies working on photorealistic metaverses, and there's all kinds of, graphics capabilities. What the game engines can do now is kind of ridiculously stunning in real time. So I don't think there's any.
This is a picture of AAA game graphics that supposedly will be rendered in real time for, I don't know, dozens of participants at the very least.
Right. But I think, like, to me, there's a story that didn't get touched on when all this sort of hubbub about nothing again sort of bubbles up, is nobody really just referred to, well, there's lots of art styles in the universe, and how come no one's criticizing the game Among Us, which has the simplest graphics known to man, but it's super engaging and fun? Is that, because it's the Zuckerberg effect and you get all this sort of like overblown kind of stuff. It's a story that's not a real story to me. I mean, it's fine. And we all know they've got lots of different technical capabilities, but art styles matter. And in a lot of ways, when you talk to kids, look, just study Roblox, right? And you talk to kids about what they really care about. It's gameplay, interactivity, and socialization. And art style takes a deep second seat to that. I mean, there are things that are valuable for them that are reality based.
Inside of the context of games, I think that is true. Yeah. But in a social universe, in VR chat, in alt space, a lot of the socializing is around exploration of new graphical universes or metaverses or virtual worlds.
Yeah. I mean, alt space is very simplistic, and VR chat right now is very simplistic. It doesn't mean that we don't all see the trajectory of where it's going. You and I have been around the video game.
I think there's already great work on the platform. I would say not necessarily for Quest 2, but for PC, it's very advanced.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of graphics power that take advantage of.
So there were a lot of other stories. Oh, here's another metaverse story, I suppose. iHeartMedia plans to host metaverse concerts in Fortnite, and they've built a place that has a concert stage, which is sponsored by State Farm, and they're supposedly, mini games. That September 9th, they're launching it with Charlie Puth. I guess he's popular. I've never heard of him, but they're going into Fortnite and doing what Fortnite did with Travis Scott and Ariana Grande. So, and again, this is their quote unquote metaverse. For those of you, we're into space. So for those of you who are listening, who are space nuts, Felix and Paul is going to present, they're going to live stream in 360 VR, the launch, I believe it is on Monday. And it's going to be on Facebook Live and also in planetariums and on mobile apps. So
yeah, they're taking it out.
Set your time. This is a cool way to watch it. I'm definitely going to try and do it. I don't think I'm busy at that time Monday morning. So
yeah, Felix and Paul are also longtime friends. They did a lot of VR work with us years ago, and they continue the journey. They're one of the bona fide experts and success stories on taking things from the real world with real cameras and eventizing them in virtual reality. So good on them to continue their journey.
Yeah, Felix and Paul do great work. A lot of their work, by the way, on the Quest, in the Quest store for free. So for those of you who own a Quest, that's worth doing. Let's bring in John.
Okay, great.
Here he is. The wheels of the Zoom are churning. Although we have to go to Riverside, I have to figure out how to do that. I think we're gonna, if we do that, it's either a lot more work for me or I sort of shift around the assistant time, which is what I'm inclined to do because I have been doing a lot of social media and I don't know how much the social media for the show is really contributing. So anyway, I'm saying that live on the air. Here's John Gaeta. John, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Great to be here. Hello, fellas.
Hi, John. Good to see you again.
Howdy,
Congratulations are in order, I suppose.
Thank you. I'll take
All
any
sorts
when
of new things in your life, right? Didn't you and your wife just welcome a baby?
That's going to happen pretty soon, actually. That's in the near future.
Okay, that's in development.
Yeah, like if the screen shuts down unexpectedly, you'll know why.
Well, you see, you are a busy guy. I have to say, we were talking a few months ago about Living Cities XYZ, and I see you're involved with InWorld AI. We were just talking about the company as Chief Creative Officer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in an eclectic mode. I think last time golly, I mean, I've seen you guys through the years. I mean, we've all met at Magic Leap. When I was at Magic Leap, there was quite the wide spectrum of experiments, things going on. And when I wound up, moving on, I started thinking about what I learned from that time and what I thought would be worthy of focus, right? Because what was very interesting was that I was introduced. I mean, it's so rare that you get a chance to have an experience like this, but I was introduced to many incredible people from outside our company with incredible visions and entrepreneurial spirit, and they were going after all these little building blocks, right? Things that you guys care about, you cover day to day. And after I left Magic Leap, I was thinking, well, of these things, what would I really want to invest my time in now? Because it's been true, it's still true that no one company really can put together all the components, or at least the right set of components to really lift, things like virtual worlds and quote unquote metaverse, on their own. It's just not really possible. So I wanted to invest myself in a few areas that I thought, were in need of building.
So tell us a little bit more about InWorld and what you're going to be doing there. So none of these gigs, in other words, is a full-time, like I'm going to go into the office kind of gig. It's more like you're focused on, your strategy, and you're just trying to help them when they have strategic decisions to make.
Well, it depends. I mean, there's it really depends. There's work to do in these different areas, and the amount of time to spend in them. I mean, a person could work 24/7 and
Right.
not come close to providing the amount of time required. But what I can give are, insights based on my experience and instincts, and also the thing that matters, I guess. I think, Ted, both you guys, would understand this. What eventually is going to be meaningful to people, that's going to, be something they're going to want to have part of their day-to-day lives. And so trying to understand, I've always tried to understand the true ultimate value proposition of some of these mediums. And, to get there requires helping others, make the leap to understand, where the real value is and where they should invest all of their efforts. So it's case by case. I mean, with with living cities, we came to realize, not like an aha, but over a whole bunch of years, right, that virtual spaces are meaningless unless, there's something that people understand where the value is. But it's very easy to find that in the real world. Like, for example, you go to a special place to meet friends, or you go to a special place because it makes you happy, or you want to bring your family there, what have you. And so there's something about that. The reason, it's not a shell, right? It's not a piece of geometry, right? You're there because people are there that you want to be with, or associating with, communities, what have you. And you feel like you want to be part of it. So the metaverse kind of lacks that. Certain game worlds have accomplished that because they've developed the fans and community around originally the idea of the interaction, but eventually they start to find each other and they like the social, right? We see that big trend occurring, has been going on for a while. But these certain big game worlds, or Roblox or Fortnite, whatever, they've figured out a way to create a spirit of place, right? And but it's kind of rarefied, as you know. And there's other fictitious worlds, of course, fans of Star Wars, fans of XYZ, they come to the place because they understand the world logic. They understand the sort of what matters, right? And so they come. So the question is, how can you do that if you're starting anew? And again, even any of those fictitious worlds, often, a great production design or writing will build metaphors on top of real world places, right? They'll be like, oh, well, this is what it feels like, this place, right, in the world. I'm going to basically reskin this within the fiction I'm working in, but it's still underneath it, the spirit of this kind of a place, right? And then, you see in fiction, really, it's just a bunch of, reskinned, it's a bunch of metaphors for real world places, right? So I think this is, what we realize with living cities is that this is a way to create depth in the metaverse.
Well, and here's a some perspectiving on that as you start to think, you're sort of walking through some of the stuff that you're thinking about. We often think about organic engagement, right? And the creation of a game world or game experience that doesn't start out to try and become a social gathering place. It organically becomes a social gathering place because the engagement level is so high, right? So if you use an experience like Minecraft, perfect example of one of the first OG real metaverse experiences, right? Where it starts out as a certain type of gameplay and build, and then more and more people gather. And because of the technology where you can connect via a microphone and talk to people around the world, you start to build an organic socialization, right? My thought, and this is kind of where my sort of question for you is do you think it can be crafted and cultivated, and raising investment capital with a thesis that says we're going to build social engagement places versus we're going to build something that we love and we want to build and then see what happens to it? I think the best examples are things that are unexpected, not sort of forced into the world by lots of capital and someone with an ideation that they want to see this become successful. It's typically a couple of kids in a garage going, this would be a fun game. Let's go build it and see what happens. And you've lived that life many times. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I think a lot of groups have it absolutely opposite, right? They're approaching it absolutely opposite. You never quite know with the good, which games are going to take off, but often it's because they've created the right mechanics, something compelling, and certainly something social really defines our times. But it's certainly no guarantee. There's countless efforts, and you're not sure which little ember turns into a fire.
Right.
But the one thing, I mean, again, our thesis is that if a real world place is fascinating enough for a certain type of people to want to get there, right? To find a way to physically get there. And if there was a way that you could channel, right, that which you might consider, magical, then perhaps that would be a starting place, right? Where it's like
And
certainly
you have a specific focus on the NPC, right, or the non-player character goal set of how to evolve that, because there's lots of video games.
Well, I
that
think
populate their
we're talking
worlds.
about two different things here, right? I think we were just on the
yeah,
virtual worlds part.
Yeah, there's two different things, I guess.
Okay.
I could talk about another project, but like there's two things that we're talking about, but they do commingle, they do overlap, right?
Yeah.
So with regard to living cities is really about trying to channel spirit of place, right? And in doing, and what we're trying to do, the channeling idea is that a real world place, is aligned, if you will, with a call it a digital twin, but it's not a dead digital twin. It's not a static model. It's a dynamic model, right? It's all of this is a road, as you can imagine, right? So, but let's say in X many years, the mirror world, right, it's more than a simulation. It's a sort of constantly updating digital location, right?
Well, if you take as you were talking, it was occurring to me what we've said many times, which is the metaverse, and not talking about a specific virtual world, but this larger concept of the evolution of platforms. The metaverse will surely contain the digital twin of the physical world. Some of them more fully formed than others, but you will be able to get, look at Google Maps, Apple Maps. These are 3D maps of physical places. And I think they'll be increasingly immersive, like Google Earth, for people who want that.
Well, and if you
you can make them really intimate and accurate, or you can make them, broad strokes, like the big maps are.
Right. If you look at what Epic Games did with their foresight and their capital, because they've got a lot of wherewithal. A few years back, they bought Twinmotion, and then they bought Quixel, right? And they incorporated those into their worlds because I think they have that same vision that you do, John, that this digital twinning and the value point, both from a industrial use case, an enterprise use case, and a gaming social entertainment use case is vast, right? So you want to sort of grab those companies that are building those things along that way. So that's two sort of examples that I know.
One of the things that John's involved with, and we probably don't have time to talk about all these things. You were working with Kim Library and Epic Games on their new Matrix game, and maybe more importantly, the virtual city that it takes place in.
Yeah. Kim Library. Yeah, I call him
Kim Library, sorry.
I call him Library too, because he's smart. Kim's a great friend, obviously, from a long time back, from Matrix trilogy, and we've been friends ever since. And this has been, I'm so lucky really to have, like the short story of a great career is to have friends and colleagues that you work with that go on and do other incredible things. And it's kind of a drag to get older, but it's also kind of a remarkable journey to see, all these friends go into other places. And, if you keep, Ted, I think you're all about this, right? Like if you keep sort of a collegiate atmosphere, and learn, and everyone's learning from one another, I think collectively, right, we inch ourselves along to understanding where we all want to go. So so I'm really lucky to have some great friends who are in Epic, and Mark Petit has done a phenomenal job since his days at Autodesk, or even before. I remember him from way back before, with those strategies that you point out, right? The sort of the components one might want to synergize to not just create a static place, but a dynamic, vibrant representation of a place for any kind of use you could imagine. At this point, it's really inappropriate to call the engines that they're making game engines, because they're really being used to build they're building all manner of.
Yeah, they're digital world engines. They're used
place
all
engines.
Exactly. They're sort of everything engines. I mean, NVIDIA's been also just remarkable, really, to watch over the last number of years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Awakens Awakens was a very great opportunity, because again, it's like, it's kind of making a world from the ground up. It's not so easy. And, having a world that you understand and has to some degree, belovedness, makes it more easy, right? Artists are empowered, right? Because they understand the logic. And so you can let them go for a while, right? And they'll be on the path. And that's one of the reasons why looking at the real world as a source is important, but it doesn't mean that, you have to be super literal, right? Like, you can make a literal dynamic twin, mirror world, simulation, choose your word. But where it starts to get really fun is abstracting from that. So like, fiction, as we said, literature, art of all kinds, right, is an abstraction of reality, right? And, Van Gogh in his real sunflower fields, somewhere, right, creates his paintings. And so it's the abstraction from reality where things also get, fun and imaginative and totally possible. So that's something to consider, right? So build something that has spirit, something that feels canonical, and then start abstracting from that for just, joy and inspiration.
Yeah, we talked before you were joining about different art styles and why art styles are so important, and how simplistic art styles can be much more powerful than photorealistic art styles in so many ways. And as you were talking, I was thinking about my various trips to Meow Wolf over the years, and the very first time to walk to a room that looks like a living room, and you see a fireplace, looks like a fireplace, and someone says, oh, you can actually walk into the fireplace, and you literally walk inside the fireplace.
I know.
Go into this magical fantasy world, right? So
right. Well, then I love where you're going with this, because wasn't Awakens an example of a simulation of a physical world, just like the one we live in every day, except there's this magical thing happening in it, right, on the cars exploding and people who have superpowers.
Yeah, through the looking glass, right?
Yeah,
it goes all the way back to Alice through the looking glass. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for, folks who likely listen to this show probably are knowledgeable enough to know the state where we are, right, in the state of things.
Yeah, this is nerd time right here.
Well, trying to be realistic. I mean, like, folks have done a lot of things. You can't pull the wool over people's eyes. I mean, but even the state of where we are is breathtaking, really, compared to like 10 years ago. But we're still steps from everybody inside, this like flawless simulation of reality. I mean, we're getting there with the graphics, right? But we're still, it's a ways to go to really have anybody being able to do anything at any moment at that cinema realism quality. But that's coming. I mean, it's all coming, right? So, partly what the Awakens thing was about was sort of visualizing an open world where it was possible to have, any manner of experience, right, at any level of grandeur, if you will, right? And so we can move laterally a little bit to like characters. So the question, like, again, the other thing that's kind of a fantasy in the near term is that countless millions of people are going to pour into these metaverse sandboxes and figure out how to entertain themselves, or build their own worlds, because not everybody has creative confidence to be a builder creator. some people are made to be that, and they you know, they're passionate and that's what they do. Other people would be more than happy to play with these creations or use these creations, interact with these creations. And there's other people who are just fine watching, you know, our culture, you know, it's sort of like a one-to-many thing. I mean, like most of us will watch, you know, and live vicariously through the lives of others, right, that are captured. But that's not going to change. And I think there's probably a version in the future where, you know, the bold and the early adopters are creating wonderful, interesting things for others of us to watch and behold. Kind of like esports is a version of that in a way, right? Like the best of the best, right, are doing their thing. And I'm happy to watch that, right, and be in awe of that. So I do think, you know, I think I thought about this when I was at Magic Leap also, that people get very stressed out about the scale of a new platform, like, oh, we'll never get millions and millions of people wearing these things, right? But in the beginning, I do think that there'll be this one of many where the pioneers are showing us, right, what their value and possibilities are. And so for a period of time, we'll probably observe this, right? And it's not harnessed yet. People aren't really doing it yet because they haven't come up with a, you know, the straightforward pipeline of allowing, you know, some to experience and others to watch, you know, something great. But that's coming, right?
Mhm.
That will come, and that
Yeah,
will
that's a
probably,
really great insight.
well, think about everything. So far, everything has followed this, you know, like before social media was like, this is a really crude way to put it, but I'm old enough to be able to, like, before social media was reality television, in my view, right? Like sort of, oh, watching others or sort of, and maybe being inspired or worse, right? And reality TV almost only occurred because there were hiccups in, like, you know, sort of traditional media, right? Like I believe reality TV began when there was an actor strike or something, right?
No, it started on MTV with Jersey Shore. And and at the same time, CBS had a huge mega hit with Survivor.
That's right. But the thing is even before Survivor, right, there was like, oh, an actor strike, and now we got to make content without unions. And what can we do? Oh, we'll do this.
Right, let's make a documentary.
So they kind of, like, we stumble in
it really
sideways.
started with cable, right? When you move from just
Yes.
3 networks in a restricted amount of time
Yeah.
to an unlimited amount of time with cable, suddenly you had to fill all that airtime, and scripted drama was not going to fill all that airtime. So people got creative. And then what you're referring to, you know, in the early days of pre-social media, we call them chat rooms, right? We were all at the age when we were on CompuServe and AOL, and we used these primordial versions of, I can do this. Now that's evolved into Reddit, right? And you know, there's so many different things that we continue to evolve the equation. But at the end of the day, humans are humans, is what you're sort of bringing up as you're discussing here. And humans tend to do the same things over and over again.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're not going back now, right? So it's really about humans watching humans sharing with humans, and now and now it's going to get weirder, right? So, you know, these worlds, just to circle back, that was a diversion. So these worlds that people are trying to spin up, these sandboxes, they're like deserts, really, because it's rare to pull people in because there's not really anything amazing to come to. And so, but it's possible, right? It's possible to give meaningfulness to these worlds. Sometimes IP alignment can do it. Certainly aligning it to the real world in various ways could do it. And in the meantime, again, you'll have like the early adopters, the pioneers in there, and then they'll be like, well, this isn't a world unless this world is vibrant with populations, right? And so the question is, how do you do that? And let's say, you know, in the case of InWorld, they're really interested in, you know, helping to, you know, create rich and deep exposition, really. And so it's almost like, here's all of your, you know, your supporting actors, right, that are surrounding you and or some other kind of centralized narrative or thing going on. And all of these characters can have really quite a sophisticated understanding of the world, of themselves, of what has happened before, of, they can have qualities, in their personalities like, like humans do. I mean, not, look, I'll retract, I'll pull that statement back just one beat. Like a great, if you watch a great movie or even a game with a great character, that character usually has several notes, if you will, right? They have like this is the way the character is most of the time. And then in this kind of a context, let's say it's the fight or flight context, they're like that, right?
Yeah, they're heightened states, right?
Right. And then there's another one where like, okay, now we're going to have like some important relationship moment, right? Like, do I care? Do I not care? But like a great character actor, right, will hit like, who knows, 3 or 4 of these notes. They'll oscillate, across. And so if you think about that, you can build characters that have this on board, right? Like this is the way you are, and then of course all that they know, and you can have goals and motives, which are really interesting, that sort of, whether they lead or are proactive, or whether they're sort of like, following your lead. You can sort of determine introvert or extrovert kind of qualities. It's alchemy. It's like character alchemy. And rather than kind of get into like the whole, impossible conversation of AGI, it's much more interesting just to think about the supporting actors around a world thing. And then, not unlike making a good, great game or movie or story, these are creative elements, right? To be able to put into place. And the point is to be able to make it possible for these worlds to really sustain the pioneer's attention, and or the game, the game players' attention, if they want to dig into the exposition.
One of my favorite early video games is a title that Vive Studios made called Front Defense. And at the beginning of Front Defense, there's always an exposition scene. And so you're in a sort of position surrounded by sandbags. And a guy walks over to you and looks you in the eye and says, "Do you have a light?" And then he sees, oh, there's a lighter sitting next to a pack of cigarettes on the sandbags, like it would in a normal situation. The guy picks up the lighter and lights it, and he starts to talk to you, and a mortar shell lands basically right on his head, and he completely disappears. And then the game begins. And I always thought, someday you're going to have a conversation with that guy. And then imagine the missile dropping. I mean, it would be horrifying because it's somebody who you've just related to.
Yeah, well, there's a very famous story in the Final Fantasy, world where the heroine dies in a sort of very tragic way, and people are still so wrecked by it because they're so involved in that characterization. There are threads online of people that my life was changed because the heroine in Final Fantasy 7 or 6 was killed in the middle of the game, and I never got over it, kind of thing. And what John's working on is taking that to a whole nother level, right? So it's going to be fascinating.
I'm excited.
Well, look, it's not just me. I mean, what InWorld is really doing is creating a very intuitive and powerful interface, basically, that anybody can use. Like the key to success is intuitiveness, and it's the ability to sort of get your character distributed into worlds, right? Like, so like if you spend some time really and you craft a very interesting character personality, you want to be able to take it around and put it into places, and they're working on those two things. So the art form is in the hands of the person, writing the few sentences and all of those things, and it's really that accessible. I think kids can do, anybody can do it. It's very simple.
Well, we'll keep a close eye and keep track on.
I
where
love
you're
that. There'd be a lot of, you'll be
Fascinating.
inside of the VR chat and there'll be avatars running around and you won't know which one is a person
Yeah.
until you actually have a conversation for some
A real
sustained
conversation.
period of time. You're like, oh, this guy's a bot.
Area of deep fascination for us.
John,
Yeah, I
thanks
think
for
it's
coming
a-
on the show.
My last point is.
Yes, sir.
It's going to make humans more valuable.
Good. We hope so. We
I
certainly
love
hope
that.
so.
It's
We're
gonna
getting
great-
less valuable by the second.
It's gonna
What a
help
great
the
insight to go out on, John.
John, thanks. Good talk. Good seeing you again. Good
Fellas.
talking.
Ciao.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week. Oh, next week
next
is Labor Day. We're off Labor Day.
Oh, we're off Labor Day. We'll see you the
We're
week
off
after.
Labor Day. So we'll see you in September.
Radio.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.